Kirby. That's the name you should know, and he's the star of the show, or rather, the star of his games. With his bright and friendly personality, it's easy to see how he can have so many friends. Of course, with every rule, there are exceptions, and this is the list of those exceptions. I'm Kyle with 1UP Binge, and today we're taking a look at Kirby's nicest nasties and his most ferocious foes. This is Kirby Villains, Good to Evil. First up, 3 rules. 1. We are only counting the games and not the anime. Secondly, we are not counting any Smash Bros. Games with their single-player modes, be it the World of Light or Subspace. And finally, Rule 3. Any lore we got from the now-defunct Miiverse will still count. Simple enough, right? Well, let's complicate this a bit. Regarding the list itself, we're going to be doing this a bit differently than our usual bad guy lists. Instead of just doing our usual evil to most evil format, we're going to be a bit more generous and give these villains more respect, since some of these foes really aren't that evil in the first place. Heck, some of them even became good friends with Kirby later on after their initial villain debut. On that note, to start this list off, we have 2 people who really could be considered heroes, and the only reason we're covering them is to just cover all our bases. These 2 are pretty much heroes, but consider them honorable mentions, or I guess dishonorable in the eyes of actual villains. First up in this pseudo-category, we have the true blue swordsman, Meta Knight. The only 2 negative marks we have for him are from his attempt to take over Dreamland to make it a more lively place in Revenge of Meta Knight, and him teaming up with King Dedede to test Kirby's might in Kirby Fighters 2. Aside from those 2 incidents, he has been as straight as an arrow. Aside from Kirby, he is usually Dreamland's most devoted protector, willing to raise his sword against any threat out to harm Dreamland, be it against the evils of the mirror world or invading threats trying to mechanize the planet. Meta Knight is always one of the first responders to the scene of any crime, ready to slay the darkness. Next up is our truly heroic, be it not as heroic as Meta Knight, unofficial king, King Dedede. True, he did start out as a foe, stealing all the food from the residents of Dreamland. After this stunt, he seemed to at least try to do good, be it keeping Nightmare sealed away, or helping Kirby after being freed by any mind control the villain of the week put him under. Sure, you definitely do square off against him other times, be it by King Dedede hosting a tournament filled with other Kirbys he created, challenging him to gourmet races, or even a one-on-one with Kirby for a hammer duel. In the end, he is a good guy, even if he likes being a rival more than a friend. With that over, onto the real list. These characters are the redeemed, or the good. Sure, they may have caused Kirby some trouble in the past, but now, they are genuine good guys and nice folks to be around. Hey, everybody deserves a second chance. For our first truly redeemed villain, we have the magician from a faraway land, Magolor. Appearing in Kirby's Return to Dreamland, he comes in crashing his ship and having to request help from Kirby and his friends to rebuild. For these efforts, Magolor promises them a trip to his home planet, Halkandra, only to be ambushed by a dragon with a powerful crown. Wanting to continue helping their new friend, Kirby and the gang go on to fight this beast, knocking the crown loose. However, this was all just a ruse by Magolor himself, who wanted the crown to use for himself for power to take over the universe. That said, these plans really don't get that far, as Magolor soon finds himself getting possessed by the crown. This crown, the Master Crown, is actually sentient and was more than happy to possess Magolor to take over the universe. So where does that leave Magolor? Well, in Kirby's Dream Collection Special Edition, he actually does come back and even apologizes for the incident and betraying Kirby by building him a giant amusement park. And his words seem 100% sincere. He did say that he really hoped that he could stay friends with Kirby should you get all 120 energy spheres, and thanked Kirby for fixing his ship even as he betrayed him. After that, he stayed on the straight path, with the worst thing he did was being a shopkeeper and a gateway to microtransactions for the Kirby team clash, which may be bad depending on your stance on the matter. Heck, in Kirby Star Allies, Magolor even pops in as a dream friend, ready to help Kirby stop Void Termina. Overall, with having the most extravagant and costly way to apologize to Kirby, and keeping his word, and helping him out afterwards, Magolor is the closest villain here to being yet another friend to Kirby. We're just waiting on an extra game or two to finally cement it. For the silver medal of truly redeemed villains, Taransa is up next. A servant to Queen Sectonia, Taransa heads off to Dreamworld in order to kidnap the hero of the land, mistaking Dedede for said hero instead of Kirby. Throughout the game, he will cause boss fights to break out to delay Kirby's progress, going all the way back to his queen. However, with all his efforts falling flat, Queen Sectonia takes control of the situation, that being shooting Taransa off with lightning. Definitely not the warm welcome he wanted. After this betrayal, he ends up teaming up with King Dedede to help save Kirby and defeat his former master, giving him a miracle fruit to inhale the evil queen. Sounds simple, right? So what puts him above other villains? Well, simply put, he really didn't mean any harm and just wanted to help his queen. We'll expand on her a bit more later, but all you need to know now is that Taransa cares deeply for Queen Sectonia, at least before she became the vile insect she is today. All he wanted to do was give her a mirror to let her see herself and improve her beauty. However, due to this mirror being a bit different, she only became cruel and a tyrant. Everything that Taransa did was just out of blind loyalty and care for his master. And he does become a good ally, so really, we can't fault someone with a tragic life like his all that much. He really wants to do good and be a worthy ally to his queen, but in the end, it just wasn't meant to be. Next up, for third place goodness and evil, we have the Mage Sisters. They are Francisca, the Master of Ice, Zan Partizan, the Mage of Lightning, and Flameberge, the Magician of Fire. Before Kirby even meets the trio, they were all on death's doorstep, with Francisca nearly drowning in a frozen lake, Zan Partizan getting zapped by lightning as she tried to climb a tower in an attempt to take her own life, after being left with nothing, and Flameberge suffocating as fire surrounded her. Thanks to a kindly wizard by the name Highness, the three were not only spared but gained the power of the elements they almost fell to. Thus, they became Highness's most devoted followers, obeying him even as he went crazy and tried to end the world. What puts these three in the redeemed category is thanks to the added mode in Kirby Star Allies, Heroes in Another Dimension. Here, Kirby and his own friends face off against the corrupt Highness, and after beating him, the three Mage Sisters come in to avenge their fallen master. Even after being tossed aside by him earlier in the main story and having their life force sucked away to keep Highness safe, they still view him with respect and dedication to serve him. After falling to Kirby, he uses the friend hearts that he collected to not only restore the Mage Sisters but also restore Highness. By doing this, he ends up reforming them as well, making them true allies to the stars. And before we reach the next area, let's add in Highness as well. Once a very kind wizard, even saving the previously mentioned Mage Sisters, he was a part of a clan who aided the people of science and helped further their discoveries. However, after being rejected by them one day, he ended up letting his heart get swallowed by the darkness of dark matter, a completely more evil threat we're going to be touching upon later. He became cold and careless, abusing his own followers if it meant furthering his goals of releasing Void to create a new peaceful world, destroying the old world in the process. He even ends up sacrificing his followers to the Jamba Heart, including himself, to help carry out this idea. As previously stated, however, he ends up managing to get reformed thanks to Kirby's efforts in Another Dimension, managing to make peace with the three Mage Sisters and starting over, making amends with Kirby. Now, as bad as ending the world is, this is definitely due to him being corrupted by the dark matter and the Jamba Hearts, so we can let it slide due to him honestly not being in his right mind, letting him walk away with a just good enough. With the redeemed heroes out of the way, we now have the wild cards. This is the gray area. People who can help the heroes, but just as easily be the villains, or just villains that aren't as bad as the rest. First up is the Master Thief, DeRoach. The leader of the Squeak Squads, this thief appears stealing Kirby's cake piece seemingly out of nowhere. However, his true prize lies in a treasure chest in Dedede's castle. Chasing after them throughout the world, their adventure reached an unexpected turn when DeRoach opened the chest, only to be greeted by Dark Nebula possessing him. After Kirby saved him from Dark Nebula's power, he ends up apologizing to Kirby by giving him the same cake piece that Kirby was about to eat at the start. In his next appearance in Mass Attack, he serves as a way to help Kirby, now in his small size, to get around the world. He even lets slip that he sees the Squeak Squad as a family to him and even tells Kirby about Necrodius. However, he manages to miss out on the redeemed category thanks to him still being a proud thief. He's happy to continue with his thievery even if he still acts friendly with Kirby, even helping him in Star Allies, if only so he can steal the Jamba Hearts. Sure, in comparison to other thieves and villains on this list, he is nicer, but he still is more than happy being a villain, and as such, we have to treat him like one. On to a more mysterious face on our list, Galactonite. For someone who has been around for a while, he is still quite mysterious. Being first introduced as the strongest warrior in the galaxy, he ended up becoming Meta Knight's rival, always challenging him after any of Meta Knight's submodes. His power is said to be so mighty that it could destroy planets, but yet we don't get any concrete proof of how evil he may be. But in Super Kirby Clash, we do know that Galactonite once went under an alias called the Aeon Hero, so he was definitely a hero at some point. Then there are questions about just how much of these modes are truly canon, leaving much to the imagination. In the end, Galactonite is just one giant piece of confusing lore. You probably didn't think this small cute puffball had such a rabbit hole of a story. Next up, we have one of Kirby's most noticeable foes, Marx. Appearing in Milky Way Wishes, he starts off telling Kirby about a way to stop the moon and sun from fighting, namely wishing for them to stop by summoning a wish-granting comet called a galactic nova. There was just one problem. He was the one that made the sun and moon fight in the first place, and his true goal is to steal the wish to take over Popstar. Thankfully, Kirby manages to return the favor and stop him in his goal. The reason Marx did this in the first place, why, he was just hungry. As relatable as that is, it still is a very flimsy excuse for planetary domination. But at least once Marx is fed, he does appear to be a decent person. The lack of empathy for betraying Kirby and almost taking over Popstar by causing a space fight between two celestial bodies definitely is harder to forgive than Magolor's sincere apology, to put it lightly. Second to last in this category is the stern secretary, Susie. Working under Haltman, her goal is to mechanize the planet and its inhabitants, and Kirby and his friends are just in the way too much. Starting off just fighting Kirby, she soon ends up brainwashing Meta Knight and corrupting him with a mech suit to get him to do the deed, only to fail and have to rely on Dedede clones. Even after all that, she still failed to the Pink Demon. Letting Haltman take control, she ends up stealing a helmet that he had on to control Star Dream in order to teach him a lesson and to make him come to his senses. Despite helping Kirby once Star Dream went haywire, she still didn't seem deterred from continuing her company's mission, even becoming the president and continuing Haltman's legacy, who just so happened to be her father. However, this is just in the English version of the story. In the Japanese version, she insists on using her technology to make others happy and to stop any savage people. So we're gonna be safe and place her this low, at least until a definitive answer comes out. Like daughter, like father, Haltman joins his daughter here. The original ruler of Haltman Works Company, his original goal was to repower a wish-granting star. However, tragedy struck when his daughter, Susanna, was teleported away. Thinking she died in the accident, his goal changed from getting the star to work to wishing for his daughter to come back to life. However, with each attempt, he lost more and more of his memory until he completely forgot his original goal, and it became to turn planets into mechanic wonderlands, to ensure his company is forever maxing out its profits. Susanna does return to him, now under the name Susie, and he forgot all about her, even if she feels familiar to him, as he gave her a high position in his company. However, after trying to use Stardream and getting his control helmet stolen by Susie, he ends up losing his soul to the computer. It's not completely gone, as some pause menu text during the True Arena reveals that he is still alive and greatly regrets building this machine, realizing how foolish it was to ask for his daughter to come back. Unfortunately, he doesn't get much better, as once Stardream takes enough damage, his very soul is destroyed and replaced by the machine. He's quite possibly one of the most tragic villains here. What started out as a man wishing for his daughter to come back became a story about how he died, not realizing he did manage to get her back. Finally, we have the real villains, the true threats. These are the worst of the worst, with very little kindness in them, if any. Redemption is out of the question for them. First up for our true threats, it's the true foe of Squeak Squad, Dark Nebula. Out of all the villains here, this guy is the one with the least amount of information. There are a couple of things we know about him. The first thing is that he was locked up in a treasure chest that both King Dedede and Meta Knight would rather not let out. Secondly, he is the ruler of the underworld, and finally, he ended up possessing the roach after he opened the chest, trying to get ultimate power. That's pretty much it. After Kirby beats it, the being just disappears. Heck, we don't even know if he really is the ruler of the underworld, or if it's just a fancy title for a strong evil being. He certainly did cause some ruckus, making him a true fiend, but due to just how little he affected the world in the end, he can't be placed any lower on our list. We're taking a break from Popstar to go into the Mirror World to discuss Dark Mind. Quite similar to Dark Matter, Dark Mind is the villain of this place, feeling that his power was becoming a threat to not only that place, but Dream World as well. Meta Knight races off to confront the source of the power, as Kirby is split into 4 versions of himself thanks to Dark Meta Knight. Truthfully, this is just another one of those villains that we really don't know a whole lot about. We know that Shadow Kirby is there to help protect the Mirror World and step up to Dark Mind, and that he is threatening more than just one world, putting him above others. But really, that's about it. Some of these foes are just evil for the sake of it, putting them above others, but with so little lore behind him, that can only go so far. Our next real threat is the creature created by crafting, Yin Yarn. This villain came from the side game Kirby's Epic Yarn. His goal throughout the game is to turn the entirety of Dreamland into yarn, kidnapping the residents to send them to his home and to be forced into serving him. He comes from Patchland, a planet he had already wreaked havoc upon. He tore the world into 7 pieces and unleashed his monsters on the land. However, thanks to the heroic efforts of Kirby and Prince Fluff, the land is eventually stitched back together and Yin Yarn is defeated. As evil as he is, we do have to give him some credit for not destroying the place or rendering it unable to continue living. Forcing others to serve you is bad, sure, but there are definitely way worse fates out there when it comes to other villains. However, Drasha still manages to beat him in terms of evil. The star villain in Kirby's Canvas Curse, she was born from a painting and wished to rule over the world, turning the entire place into a place created as a literal work of art. She even manages to turn Kirby into a defenseless ball. She spawns forth monsters and bosses from art for the sole purpose of stopping and killing Kirby. Truthfully, she is kind of similar to Yin Yarn in terms of motivation and goals, only being more forward with her attempts at killing Kirby, ranking her higher than the 2 needles. That is, if only due to just how more involved she is in destroying Kirby. For the most evil of the crafters, we have the appropriately named Dark Crafter. When we first play through Kirby and the Rainbow Curse, we believe that Glacia was the villain, turning on her friend Aline and stealing the color from planet Popstar, rendering the land completely inanimate. However, this is just another case of someone's body getting hijacked to serve the villain. After knocking some glasses off of Glacia, she soon regained her senses as the true threat, Dark Crafter, escapes the scene only for Kirby to chase after him and finally end Dark Crafter. As another one-off villain, he manages to score higher than Yin Yarn due to him being more threatening to Dreamland, completely making all of the inhabitants there inanimate, and only being able to be undone thanks to Eileen's power. Definitely the meanest of the three craft-based villains. Remember Taransa from way back? Well, now it's time to talk about his ruler, Queen Sectonia. She used to be like him once, a happy and fair ruler of the sky. However, she wanted to become more beautiful, so tasked her subject to find something to help her. What he came back with was the Dimension Mirror, and while looking into it, she became more and more corrupted by its power and her greed for beauty. As such, she started to turn on her subjects and her servants, forcing them to serve her on her quest for everlasting beauty. Eventually, she ended up taking over her kingdom and started to spread her influence to Popstar. Thanks to her former citizens sending a seed down to create the Dreamstalk, Kirby was able to make the climb to her throne room and eventually stop her just before she covered the entirety of Popstar in her vines after fusing with the Dreamstalk. Sure, she may have been a good person before, but now, after losing herself to the Dimension Mirror, she is just a shadow of her true self. In a similar vein to wrapping up Triple Deluxe, let's finish Planet Robobot with Star Dream, aka the Mother Computer. Originally, it was just a galactic nova soaring the cosmos, granting wishes to whoever can summon it. However, after being used by Haltman for so long, this unit decided that it had enough. Taking control over Haltman, Star Dream has a new goal. Seeing that all organic life is bad, it decided that the best course of action was to just destroy all life and start anew, to ensure a prosperous future. Sure, his warped goal is noble if you look at it in the right way, putting him above other villains, but he is still very much vile. For starters, he took over Haltman and pretty much destroyed his soul. You can even hear his soul cry out in pain as the true final boss in the true arena is knocked out and permanently killed. Secondly, there is the matter of the whole genocide thing. He's not even being as benevolent as Thanos is and plotting on sparing only half of life in Infinity War. Nope, he is plotting on a full-scale universal wipeout of organic life. Sure, Thanos got that idea later, but only after being hounded and beaten by Marvel's finest. Star Dream comes out swinging with this plan, putting him this high up. Arriving at Kirby's latest foe, we have Void Termina. This is the beast that Highness wanted to release in the first place. Anyone who got the nickname of Destroyer of Worlds and Dark Lord is definitely worth watching out for. He is a being born out of Void, which is basically a being that is created from all the malicious energy and darkness. This being was born and brought forth to this world by Highness to destroy the world to seek revenge after his own clan perished. Due to the heroic efforts of Kirby and his friends, they were able to finally put a true end to this universal threat. However, there is one big difference between him and other villains that put him lower than the rest. Void Termina was born from Void, and what he ends up as, be it a friend or foe, is all dependent on the energy surrounding him. Thanks to how filled with hate Highness was, he turned out to be an evil capable of destroying the universe. However, after losing to Kirby and picking up on a couple of his traits, Void Termina started to think and look a bit like him, even dying in the ultimate choice as Astral Void with a smile on his face, as if he will come back as a friend. As such, while we are ranking him this high, we hope we can see him again, this time as a star ally. Just sitting, or in this case flying, outside of the final three, we have Zero Two. No, we're not talking about the anime character, we're talking about the floating eyeball. This creature spawned from Dark Matter's defeat is the threat of Kirby 64, the Crystal Shards. Taking over the planet of the fairies, Ripple Star, he ends up almost destroying that planet, but also Popstar, using Dark Matter forces to brainwash some residents into working for him. It's definitely at the very least aware of what can kill him, as it tries its hardest to ensure that Ribbon and the Crystal don't survive the trip to Popstar. For its credible threat, use of dark matter, and almost destroying 2 planets, and getting much further than any other foe, we give Zero Two this high up of a spot. We finally reach our top 3, and the first up to bat for the bronze is the original true villain, Nightmare. One of the most recurring fiends in Dreamland, his goal is basically in his name. He wants to spread his nightmare and powers across the cosmos. His ways of accomplishing this feat were by tampering with the Fountain of Dreams to give everyone nightmares. King Dedede managed to trap him in the fountain, and once Kirby accidentally freed him, Kirby soon finished the job and properly killed him. That said, we do run into a bit of a problem that prevents us from ranking him any higher. His other major roles are either stuck in subgames, which have rather questionable continuity, or in the anime, which we aren't counting, even if that would put him in the gold for certain due to providing so many monsters. Even then, with how many times he keeps appearing in these extra game modes as a villain, we do have to give him some props for at least constantly trying, regardless of continuity. That said, even with all these things going against him, Kirby's first major threat still remains one of his most hostile and cruel, and he isn't going to be going anywhere soon, even if it is just another side game, for better or for worse. Probably the latter. What did Necrodius do to get this silver medal for evil on our list? Well, a fair bit, to put it lightly. Firstly, he wants nothing less than the death of the universe, destroying stars just because they are too bright. He ends up attempting to destroy planet Popstar's light, as to him, it's the brightest star in the universe. As we see by now, Kirby isn't that unfamiliar with facing giant evil gods of death. So Necrodius decides to play it smart and safe by sneak attacking Kirby and killing him, or at least splitting him up into 10 and killing 9 of the 10 copies. It was only because he smugly thought he killed them all that one survived. Necrodius ended up being the villain who was the closest to permanently killing Kirby. Add this alongside his attempts to drown the entire universe in darkness, and you get a recipe for a pretty deranged foe worthy of being this high up. The only reason why he isn't number 1 is that he's only been around for about 100 years, and not way longer like our number 1 pick. Finally, it's the true villain, the overarching threat for this entire series, and it's none other than Dark Matter, who gets our gold medal for evil. Now, this species is such a can of worms that trying to explain everything about this being in such a short time is a tall order, but we'll try. This is Kirby's most constant and recurring threat. Not only was it a continuing threat in Kirby Dream Land 2, 3, and Crystal Shards, but it's possible that its reach extends far past these games. His goal is to drown the world in darkness, be it by sealing Dreamland away from the Rainbow Islands, possessing everyone it can and covering the planet in darkness, or being led by Zero Two to destroy the galaxy one planet at a time. What makes this threat much more menacing than the others is just that we really don't know how much this species extends. We have the vile Dark Matter and Zero Two as leaders, sure, but we also managed to have a friendly Dark Matter being called Gooey, Kirby's best friend as a matter of fact. But then we have all the possible villains that just may be connected to it, ranging from Dark Mind in the Mirror World, Void possibly being affected and influenced by it, even the Master Crown being influenced by Dark Matter. This threatening species managed to persist after so long due to just how unknown it is. There are extreme implications and they aren't outright confirmed, sure, but with so many villains having so many similarities to this threat, we feel very confident calling Dark Matter the true threat to Kirby, and giving it the gold for villainy. But what do you think? Which Kirby villain is truly the worst of the worst? Let us know in the comment section below. Don't forget to hit that notification bell and binge our Good to Evil playlist, where we break down the morality of the characters in your favorite games. But most importantly, stay wicked.